Before we start the actual video, I wanted to mention two things. First, I'm gonna be streaming, so if you're curious, you wanna ask me questions, play with me, whatever, just hop into the chat, then go down in the description and you'll find the link to my Twitch channel. And the second thing I wanted to let you know is that I'm gonna be selling these mice, so if you would like to buy any of them, then just also feel free to hop onto the Discord server and DM me or personal message me or whatever it's called these days. So yeah, let's move on to the video. What's the problem with the cable on this mouse, you might ask? Well, aside from the fact that it even exists, hint hint, it's too stiff. Even though it's a great cable, it's the cable of the MX518 Legendary. The problem is, it still has a rubber coating and copper shielding beneath the rubber coating, and only then come the 4 wires which are actually required for the mouse to work. So if we want to go around that problem, we do this. Peel the cable, and you shave down a lot of weight by doing that, but even if you do that, the cable is still not really that flexible. I even untwisted this cable, because by default, the Zowie cable, when you peel it, looks like this. It's twisted, and it's really not that flexible like this. So what I did, I took the cable and cut it, then untwisted it and reconnected the wires. And I've also made a hook here, so that if the wire gets pulled, the connections, the fragile new connections which I made, don't get pulled. So, if you untwist the cable, the individual 4 mouse cables, USB cables, will be loose like this. And this will give the wire more flexibility for sure. But even like this, if I twist it a little bit, I will be able to show you even without any mouse feet, and which means the mouse glides harder on the mouse pad, that I can move the mouse still with the cable if I push it backwards. Which is not good. It shows that it's not really flexible, and I can do that without any problems on the MX518 as well. So the solution is here on both of these mice. If we look at this cable and try to move the mouse with it, we fail to do so, because it's really flexible. No matter how much I try to move the mouse by pushing the cable, even if I twist it a little bit, I can't move it. At this point you're probably screaming at the screen, why don't you buy a paracord? Well, first of all, it's more expensive, $15 plus shipping, and it's probably, I haven't tried it, so take this with a grain of salt, but it's probably not as flexible as this one, because it has a fabric layer on top of all of the 4 wires. Yes, this doesn't look as great, and yes, this is more fragile, but also more flexible. Enough of the paracord versus my cheap solution for €1. Let's move on to how you actually do this mod. What you'll need for this mod will be a screwdriver, with which you unscrew the screws on the bottom of your mouse, a sharp object with which you can peel off your existing mouse feet. You'll have to push it underneath here, then get it free, and then you can just peel it off with your fingers. The really flexible cable that I bought from eBay, which is, by the way, a micro USB cable. You'll have to cut off the end and peel the whole cable. There's only rubber on top of this cable, by the way, no copper shielding. Some replacement mouse feet, and this thingy, last but not least. But this thingy is optional, because if you cut the original JST connector and the wires like around here, you can save a couple of cents because you don't have to buy this. But your original cable will be ruined. Since we got all the ingredients, we can start to get to work. First off, we'll peel off this cheap cable.
Let's get to work!
You have two options. You can just pull it off, pull the rubber coating off as soon as you free a little bit of it, and that will make the wire go something like this. Springy, which can be good, like this. Because if you're following the other method and you're carefully cutting the wire all the way through, the other rubber coating, and only then will you try to remove the rubber after you've cut it, the wire will not get as springy. It will stay more straight. This springy cable can be a bit more flexible. When you push it forward or backward, it can collapse into itself, or how should I put it? The straight wire will be a little bit less flexible. So it's your choice. But if you make it too springy, it can be too flexible and get under the mouse when you're trying to play with it. And we have the cable all peeled off. We can remove the micro USB end of it, leaving a little bit of cable in case you want to use that for a different project. Just out of curiosity, I'll measure how much the rubber weighs which we cut off. 8 grams. The cable with the USB connector weighs 7 grams. If I put the USB connector off of the scale, it weighs like 5 grams. At this point you're probably curious about the original cable peeled. That's 22 grams. So now this cable is half ready because we still have to peel off the ends of these individual 4 cables, connect them to the JST connectors cables, or you can use your original mouse cable's JST connector and a little bit of cable. So we'll go ahead and peel these little cables and connect them. And which cable you connect to which one, I'll show you right now. This will be different for all manufacturers, so if you get a Logitech or a Razer mouse or something along those lines, just click on the link in the description and that'll take you to the overclock.net or overclockers.net forum, on which there's a really handy post which tells you the ordering of the wires depending on which brand your mouse is from. But if you get a Zowie mouse, you can continue watching the video. I'll use this cable as the example and set the original one aside, but you can use the original as well. These things should be facing upwards and not this side. The first wire here you can cut off, because this is just shielding and we don't need that. Don't pay attention to the color of the wires here, because they'll just confuse you. Just remember, first slot gray wire, second slot blue, third slot white, and the last fourth slot is red. So now our ultralight wire is almost finished. We just have to make sure that these will not connect while they're inside the mouse. And you can do that however you see fit, but I'll show you my method. It won't be pretty, but it will be usable. I used the same method to separate the wires for the last 2 mice I did, like the G303 and the FK1 I have. You take a bit of sellotape or see-through tape or whatever you want to call it, and then push one of the wires onto it. Then push a second wire near it, but far enough that they won't connect. After you have them there, you can fold the tape. These wires won't move, they won't be able to touch each other. And now we layer the second set of wires on here. Let's place it here. And once we have those here as well, we can fold the sellotape a second time and then fold it over again. I know it looks messy, I know it looks like the wires are connecting, but they do not. Because I placed them in a way that they don't connect. And when you fold sellotape over itself, when the sticky side touches the sticky side, it really sticks. So those cables won't be able to move around inside the sellotape. I can even fold it up like this, twist it up like this, so that it doesn't take as much space up when it will be inside the mouse. I recommend you to plug in this new cable, this new Ultralight cable we made, into the PCB of the mouse, and then test the mouse, whether the sensor works, whether the buttons work. And only if it does work, assemble the mouse, because you don't want to be taking apart the mouse again and reassembling it after you've done with all of this, because trust me, you'll be tired at the end of it. Now we remove these screws. There will be two types of screws here. Bigger ones with the larger head will be in the back, and the smaller ones will be in the front. Lift the top part off, pull this wire out. You can also remove the scroll wheel so that it doesn't remove itself when you're moving around the mouse. You can unplug your original wire and JST connector. Let's plug in the wire and reassemble the mouse. Make sure that the cable doesn't go over this hole where the screw will be, and it also doesn't go over this line, this wall, because this will be in contact with the top of the shell. So your cable should go like this, so it's not above this wall. You can use tricks like tucking this port under the PCB and lifting up this cap a little bit and placing the wires below it and then pushing it back, so it helps you route the cable. And then just make sure that the cable comes out like this, around the hole where the screw will be and between these plastic thingies. So after you got it all sorted like this, you can try to put the scroll wheel back, don't forget it. Connect the wire that hangs out of here and then slowly put the top cover back. When it comes to screwing back the screws, the bottom two screws can be tightened perfectly. But on the top two screws you might want to play around with the buttons. Push them a little bit, push them a couple of times to see how they feel before you put the Teflon feet back on. Because with these two screws you basically set how stiff the buttons are, the pre-travel distance if you will. If you leave them loose, the buttons obviously will be more loose. If you tighten them, then even a little bit of force will actuate the buttons. That's pretty much it for the Ultralight cable mod, which is really flexible and stuff like that. The video was helpful to you, or you liked it, or you were entertained by it, which I highly doubt, then you can brighten my day with your like on it, and If you want to see more content like this, you can also subscribe to me and push that bell icon, or not push it, or whatever. But yeah, if you want to see more, subscribe.